Evening, folks. Brian here. It's Wednesday, January 1, 2025. We're going to go over a few things. I'm going to start off with a little bit of history. The Great Smog of London of 1952. From December 5 to December 9, 1952, approximately 12,000 people died, and another 150,000 were hospitalized from sulfur dioxide, sulfuric acid poisoning. I'll explain. The weather conditions then there in December were cold and foggy. There was increased coal plant burning for both heating and production of electricity, which led to people being poisoned by the noxious clouds, breathing in the equivalent to acid rain. Sulfur dioxide is released by the coal burning process. So toxic sulfate builds up in a naturally foggy environment, forming tiny particles of sulfuric acid, which can be inhaled. It's just sounding familiar. So when this sulfuric acid cloud started to lift after December 9, 1952, then people started dying. Now, to today's case, maybe a little bit different. I think we have some SO2 emissions. Now listen, sulfur dioxide and other emissions doesn't just come from volcanoes. Volcanoes is something people visualize. Fractures in the ocean floor, fissures, etc. Fractures in the earth. Look what's going on in Ethiopia right now. For days, ongoing magnitude 5+ earthquakes. This is right above the AFAR mantle plume hotspot at the triple junction fracture zone. Fracture zone over a hotspot, for an example. As for today's massive spread of sulfur dioxide clouds, this actually started about 2 days ago. So there was, all at the same time, I started seeing some SO2 emissions from Vanuatu. Remember all those large earthquakes, December 20th, 21st, around there. Vanuatu, Santa Cruz Islands, Solomons, Rabaul, Papua New Guinea, Raung, north of Sulawesi, Indonesia. All at the same time, I started seeing some on the other side of the Pacific plate. Chile, Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, all the volcanoes, and the ongoing one in Mexico. So there's one thing about the SO2 emissions right now. They all are centered around the equatorial region of our planet, mostly. So something to think about. If we're going to start having volcanic events or seepage, leakage of sulfur dioxide and any other emissions from within the Earth in the northern hemisphere right now, which is now winter, mixed with our cool, damp weather, we're going to start having acid rain, droplets, mists, events. For the past few weeks, when all the drones started up, in the northeastern United States, I keep on seeing SO2 emissions. There is a coal-fired plant there, but I don't think it's large enough to produce what I've been seeing. Let's talk a little bit about today's geomagnetic instability, solar storm. So we briefly spiked up to KP10. That's like danger level, folks, for a 60-minute period. So the geomagnetic instability actually started about 18 hours before. So it's almost what, or rather the Earth rotated almost one full turn as it was being bombarded. The KP10 was over offshore northern Chile. I'm not saying that particular location is going to have a seismic event or volcanic event. So within 12 to 24 to 72 hours following a solar storm impacts, there is a 75% probability of a major seismic event and or volcanic eruptions. So I took every single earthquake for the year 2023. There were 24 magnitude 7+ earthquakes that year. 75% happened within 72 hours following a geomagnetic storm. So we started off with G1, G2, jumped up to G3, 60-minute period of a KP10. That's like above G5, and that's the top of the scale. And then descending. Therefore, within the next 72 hours, we can expect a seismic event. So right now the Earth is, so the impact side is below the equator region. So it actually started as the Earth was rotating. West Africa crossed over the Atlantic into Brazil, across the Pacific Ocean, Australia, Indian Ocean, and so on. So if I say, for example, it hit G3 over Eastern Australia, that would encompass all regions around. It would include Fiji, Vanuatu, Solomons, Papua New Guinea, Indonesia, etc. When I say it spiked up to G4 offshore northern Chile, that could include Peru, Ecuador, Hongaroa, Easter Island, and so on. It should also be noted that at this time there is 2 substantial sized coronal hole openings in our sun. A coronal hole opening is when you look at the imagery, you see this big black opening. It releases the highly charged particles, accelerated solar winds. That in itself, in the absence of a flare, boom booms, will cause geomagnetic storms when those increased solar winds reach us. 2 to 3 days. They are substantial. So again, we will have another geomagnetic storm 48 to 72 hours from now, approximately. Could be a big one. Sulfur dioxide. My wife is from Indonesia. I'm asking her to check in with her family. She hasn't heard anything out of the ordinary. What is out of the ordinary is NASA Worldview and NASA FIRM's Fire Information Resource Management System is showing absolutely no heat indications along the entire length of Java, with the exception of only one point. There's usually 6 to 12 to 18, just from all the volcanoes. They're not showing anything. And yet, the massive spread of the SO2, sulfur dioxide clouds. So just something to think that if we have a volcanic event or even a seismic event opening up a fissure, releasing the gases during the wintertime, sulfuric acid. Now, yes, I understand there's lots of people that have smelling the smell of sulfur here and there and everywhere else from eastern United States, western United States, Australia, and so on. I think that's about it for now.